Today I'm in the studio with Petri Lehmuskoski, who along with Risto Rautakorpi is a founding partner of Gorilla Capital. Welcome to the studio, Petri.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
All right. Today's discussion is going to be about the early stage of the startup journey. And when we were shooting the first episode with Risto, we mentioned that Howard loves the startup J-curve is kind of like a Bible to us. We use it a lot, both internally and especially in our discussions with the founders. So I would like to start today by discussing the startup J-curve a little bit. I think that we don't need to dive deep into the contents of J-curve, but if I just briefly walk through it. So Howard Love has been working with a lot of startups, has been investing in a lot of startups, and has figured out that pretty much any startup journey you can divide into 6 different stages. So the first stage of startup curve is create phase, where when you are starting a company, you're thinking about what is the business that you're going to get into, what type of a product or service you are building. The second stage is called create, which is the place where you develop the first version MVP of your product and service and start seeing how it's being perceived within the field. The third phase, morph phase, is an interesting one. So what Howard Love has seen, and I think it also matches with our experiences as investors, is that it is very rare for a company to end up doing exact the same business that they thought of in the create phase. Usually when you talk to the customers, when you start approaching the market, there are certain things that you need to even pretty fundamentally change within your product and service. So the morph phase is where you do either large iterations or actual morphs to match your business with the customer need. The fourth phase, called model, is then looking at, well, now that we have this product or service, what's going to be the business model by which we are going to be able to build this business. And once you have nailed those first 4 stages, you can move to the stage where it seems that everyone's always in a hurry to go, which is the scaling phase. And scaling phase is the part where you start to get a lot of customer traction and really start building the business. And then the final stage is called harvest. So you have built your business, you have a good profitable business, and then you kind of focus on nourishing the business and making sure that you make the best out of it. So with very brief introduction to J-curve, Petri, why is J-curve so important to what we do?
Yeah, J-curve gives a framework how to think, because most common mistake startups do is that they do right things at wrong time, where you should focus your time, the biggest shortage you have, on the right things for that stage. It's not really any point of when you are on the morphing stage to do any scaling phase things. Those ones you can leave later on, or modeling stage things. And really, it has 6 stages, so you could put that there is a problem solution fit, there is a product market fit, and what we call a scaling fit. And those ones are really coming out also from that J-curve. You could say that the problem solution fit really is the morphing. You have to learn. And then you have the product market fit, which is more like the modeling, partially of the scaling. And then the scaling fit is like about efficiency. Mm-hmm. How to do it better, how to have bigger margins, how to do more efficiently.
That's a good way of clarifying it. And I think one additional aspect of the J-curve is also that it does look like a J. So when you start your startup journey, you're not linearly just going ahead. You have to go through bumps and bruises and dive a little bit in order for you to find the business that you want to be in. And I think J-curve is very good at showing that as well. Now, both in our podcast and in the market in general, there's been a lot of talk about product market fit, and there's also been kind of the view that before you find product market fit, nothing else matters. But you mentioned the other very critical term, which doesn't get talked about as much as product market fit, the problem solution fit. So how would you describe what is or define what is problem solution fit?
Problem solution fit is the groundwork for any successful business. If you do not understand the problem solution fit, and it's not about what you dream, it's about what the customer has. What is the customer's real problem? Do they realize how valuable is that problem? And really, is that solution good for that or not? Because sometimes solutions have drawbacks for the customer. They might be bigger drawbacks than benefits, and that for that reason, it's not viable. There is no problem solution fit for the customer's perspective. The solution is too expensive. For example, that it has a side cost or side effect or losing control or training cost or that kind of things. That, the problem solution fit is the groundwork. And many times founders have some understanding of that, but they are not able to articulate it to other people. And then you have a challenge of growing the company because the other people are solving different problems. And that sense, before you have a problem solution fit understood by all the players in the company, you cannot really move. You should not move to the product market fit. Product market fit is more like, okay, what is the best price I can get, adjusting. But before understanding the customer need, the customer problem, the value the customer has for that problem, it's not worth to move to the problem solution, product market fit.
That makes perfect sense. And I think one of the things that we see oftentimes is that it's fairly easy to identify and find problems. But as human beings and as businesses, we're kind of very good at living with problems. We don't have to solve every problem that we have. And we oftentimes talk about, is it a must-have for the customer or is it nice to have? So when you're assessing the problem part of the problem solution fit, what does a founder need to go through? How can you kind of measure how significant the problem is that you're looking to solve?
Yeah, typically we look from problems we have, and we try to sell that problem to someone else, a business or someone else. The challenge is that it has to be coming from the customer's point, the paying customer. Now you might have also the big problem that people think that the users are the customers. They are not paying. There is the who has the money is the who has to have the problem. And you have to have that problem in their scale. It is that, okay, in their scale, for you it might be really big. In their scale, it might be that we have much bigger problems. And then you are not in their priority. And it has to have a value in their perspective, on the customer's perspective. You might have a value, but you are not paying. The paying customer has to have a value in that perspective. It helps me on doing something. And I agree that it helps. Because trying to sell a problem to a customer is it's really hard. It's rarely happens, and it's not repeatable business.
You're raising a very important point. So when we talk about business to consumer business, it's fairly simple. The consumer is both the user and the buyer. But when we go to the business to business environment, oftentimes the person who's facing and dealing with the day-to-day problem and is using the solution is different from the person or persons who are actually making the buying decisions. So what would be your advice to startups when they are trying to gauge this problem? How do you kind of combine those different views, and how do you kind of create your own hypothesis of what the actual problem is that you need to solve?
Yeah, typically it comes from the money-wise. You have to get the buy from the guy who has the money. And the secondary is the user problem. It is that, okay, if you can't get the buy from the money guy, you are not ever going to solve it for the users. That's first where you have to start from. And then you have to, okay, what is the most efficient way to solve the user's problem? And sometimes you also need to understand that solving the user problem might actually create a problem for the money guy, vice versa, really. And that's the big challenge, why you need to understand the customer need and scale and importance and what value does it add. You might add loads of value on the user side, but it doesn't add any value on the buyer who has the money. And then you have the challenge, he is not going to buy it. And you have to understand who has the money. It's typically it's that users typically don't have money, but it might be where in the organization is the money and where is it coming from and are they able to do it? That you have to build really good understanding of the customer's purchase process. How do they manage it? Everything.
Good. And if we're looking at kind of the customer's decision making or buying process, and we have identified some pain points and problems in there, how can you then assess whether the problem is significant enough that the customer is willing to act on it?
It's you have to test it. You have to do the release and you have to test it and you have to get some commitment from the customer. Then you begin to understand it's a viable problem for them to solve. What value does it create? That needs more conversation, discussions with the customer. Because then you have to pick the small points. Okay, if you do this, it adds more value. If you do that, it might decrease of the value of the product. But that is, you have to do loads of customer meetings and interviews and interviewing the people who did not buy your product. Because they typically, that's the easier way to interviewing customers who bought is a little bit challenging because there are many reasons why they bought it. But interviewing customers who did not buy is really good because they had something. Why didn't they buy? What caused that decision? And if you can overcome that problem or issue, or have a different approach, etc., that's the best way to learn.
Makes perfect sense. So then, if we have been able to identify a significant problem within the customer organization, and then we move into the solution part of the equation. You mentioned that that it's a different concept. Kind of having the pain and the problem is different from the value that the customer perceives, and that's a good way of putting it. And kind of the normal value equation, when you look at it from the sales point of view, is that value equals benefits minus the costs. And if we then start thinking about the solution and benefit side of business, what are some of the important things that founders should think about when they start thinking about their solution?
A little bit on the side. 99% of founders underestimate the value they generate because they don't understand. They don't go to the backer customer and, okay, how much value does it really create? And then you underprice typically your product. We have had founders who sold the product at 50 cents and the last deal was in hundreds of thousands euros for exact same product because they did not understand where do they add the value. And same solution might have a different added value in different customer groups. That sense, you have to understand also that segmentation of different customer groups. And really, it's adding value is something what you learn also with the time. You implement, you test it, you have to evaluate how much value did that, and then you go next customer increase, double the price. And then again go back and evaluate that, okay, what kind of value do I create? How does the customer see this? Okay, rarely customers say, "Oh, you were so cheap," but you have to. That's more the discussion. You have to understand where the value is, how much it is, and where can I actually place my product on the value wise. And as I mentioned, 99% sell too cheap.
Yeah, to build on that, I think you brought up also an important point on your side note in essence, and that is that you've already alluded to it, but we as the sellers don't determine what the value is. The value is always determined by the customer, and it's not the same value for each customer. So when the customer perception is the reality, then you need to understand customer by customer, what is the value we create, how much is it worth to them, and I think that's one of the places where we oftentimes take shortcuts and don't take enough time to understand the specific customer value for this particular customer.
It is extremely important really to begin to, and there you begin to go overlap a little bit from the problem solution fit to product market fit, where you begin to do a segmentation of customers, etc. That you have to understand that same solution really might have 1,000 times higher value with the different customer group than the other one. And you have to begin to segment the customers, because early stage companies always need to go after customers that bring the biggest return on investment, invested time or money-wise. It's on the back. You can't go the one after the customers who don't bring in the lowest return, ROI. And that sense, it is a little bit, and then it begins to go more on the product market fit, where you have to begin to model, okay, which business models I'm going to use, because that's more coming from a segmentation groups. And companies typically have a different, over lifetime, they have a different business models. That people are too often fixating of getting a business model ready, when you can live with a fluent business model for a long, long time. When you go scaling, then it needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. So just once again checking on the terminology, because there are a lot of terms being used. So when we talk about segmenting the customer base, you're trying to find certain customers who would have similar needs, so that the value you create for them would be large. So when we're talking about kind of finding that initial segment, where you can produce the most value, would that then be equal to your initial ideal customer profile, ICP?
Typically, the first customers are the early adopters, and that might not be your ideal customer profile for long term. It is because they have a different drivers for decision making. They have a little bit different problem than basically the early maturity, which typically would be the ideal customer profile. That, you have to change a little bit also on that. And that's more, again, going on the problem solution fit. You have to understand, okay, I'm working originally with the early adopters. And I have to do, again, a new problem solution fit for the early maturity customers. It might be a little bit different. That it's quite fluent until you begin to go, you are really moved on the early maturity customer group.
So deriving from that, it's not that you have one problem solution fit for your whole business. You always have to, whenever you have a new segment, whenever you have a new customer base, you need to make sure that your problem solution fit is adopted to that particular group of customers.
Sometimes it can be same, sometimes it is different. Also, when you go different markets, you have to do the evaluation again, because the market might have a different problems and solutions and views on the how valuable is that you might have an extremely valuable problem solution fit in for example in Finland, but it might be quite worthless in, let's say, in Germany. And there might be there could be big problems or there could be small problems. It's really depending always on the product and industry and etc.
And how would you then measure the progress towards problem solution fit in an early stage company?
Uh, that's always challenging because it is like evolving. But really, when we speak with the founders and understanding where are they with this, typically they need to be able to articulate it. And if they are not able to articulate it, that so that other people understand it and buy it, it's really typically then it's still not validated by the customer. And that's a common thing. It takes problem solution fit takes time. People think, oh, okay, it's done in a week. It takes many cases can take years, and then in one day, because it's quite a lot thinking and background work, and it's not like, okay, here it is and it's ready, done, and then suddenly one day they are able to articulate it. And it, as I mentioned earlier with touch, it changes also. That you have to be able to change it. That you can't articulate it today one way and they keep it same after 2 years. There is a problem. You are not learning enough fast. But it needs to change. And that's also one of what we are looking when the discussion with founders over time is that how is the articulation changing? Is there deeper understanding coming in? Is it typically when you start, they are talking about huge business, large business, something for everyone, and then in the end it's really small thing for a small group of customers, and then you begin to understand, now they begin to be in the deep. Because if it's something for everyone, it's nothing for anyone.
And I think the importance of problem solution fit also is tied to a certain extent to the type of business that you're building, from the perspective that if you have a company that's geared towards solving an existing problem of today, then getting to the problem solution fit early is even more critical than if you're trying to build a white space business where you are building something totally new that doesn't exist in the market.
Of course it is on going something in the what's the problem in the future. It of course there is a gamble of partially involved on that, because the world might turn totally other way. It is, yes. Typically we work with companies that are they are solving today's problems, but there is always business and successful companies who are solving future problems. And of course, it is needed in the world to change also.
And I just think it's important to make that distinction because essentially, as you mentioned, the companies that we work with are the ones that are solving existing problems. You already mentioned a couple of things with a little bit of an investor hat on, but if we dive a little bit deeper into that, so from investors' perspective, what do you look for when you see a new company's pitch deck for the first time? What do you look for in terms of problem solution fit?
That there is an initial thinking and initial understanding of that, and there's a will to understand that. Do you have it? As I mentioned, it's a long time and it evolves, but there needs to be also will to understand. Not that, okay, I have this greatest product and I want everyone to buy it and I'm trying to figure that out where does it fit as create a problem. That's not the way to go. It rarely happens. Really, you need to have, okay, I want to understand what the customer has a problem. I had this you could say, this surface. I have scratched the surface, but I'm willing to dig deeper. I'm willing to learn on the way, that I'm not fixated. This is the only way it can be done. It might be that you do totally different things on the way and totally different solution, totally different value, what you didn't know when you begin to dig deeper. No one is the master in the beginning.
Very true. I think one of the trends that you see nowadays is that there are a lot of people who are giving advice on how to structure a pitch deck and how to put your presentation together. And oftentimes there is a space where they say, okay, define the problem that you're you're solving, and then put your solution in the next phase. I think we see a lot of materials where it's, as you said, it's just the founder's initial perspective of what the problem is. It's more of an exception than a rule that you already see at that stage, that they have been talking to customers, that they have some actual feedback from the customers defining what the problem is and how do they perceive the problem. And as you were mentioning, I think whenever that happens in a pitch deck, you start actually paying attention that it seems that these people are really curious and are interested in the customer.
And the easiest way to evaluate is that ask, okay, which customers have you met?
Yeah.
Okay, send me the list of the people you have met, and you might be wanting to make a couple calls and say, okay, what did you understand? We have seen situation where customer has bought the product, but they have not understand. They bought for some other problem, and not for the problem the founders wanted to sell that into. And you have this. It is challenging, but typically you can really easily, because do the people have industry background? How well they know the industry? Have they interviewed enough customers? Really fast you get in the feeling. Okay, are they really going through the surface?
And one of the things that you do see quite often as well is that you have people who do come with the industry background and they have first-hand experience of the problem, which is always good. But at the same time, in certain cases, it can lead to this complacency that they think that they know what the customers want and what the customers need. And it's never that easy. You always have to have the actual end customer feedback in order for you to be able to confidently move ahead.
The common problem with people coming from the industry is that they're solving the user problem. Because they, as a user, had that problem. Then they're missing, okay, is this the who owns the money problem? Do they experience this same problem? And that is really common coming from the industry. Yeah, I've been the user, okay, but who had the money? Do they agree that this is a problem? And how high in their priority list is this problem? Because if you are in the priority list place 7, they are not really going to buy your product. If you're high on the priority list, then of course, and then you can charge much, much more for that.
So then early on you mentioned kind of these 3 fits. So you had the problem solution fit, product market fit, and then the scaling fit. So if we still come back to this problem solution fit versus product market fit, so if we go a little bit deeper into that, what are the primary differences between product market fit and problem solution fit?
Problem solution fit is about building understanding. And really, it's like building deeper and deeper understanding. It is like, for example, is on what we touch, the customer segmentation. You begin to understand how customers differ. Everyone are not the same. If you take a industry, for example, in Finland, the paper industry, there are different segments also on that. And then you begin to understand, okay, it's not the paper industry. It's in the companies with the pulp production, etc. And then it goes deeper. That's when you have done that, then the product market fit is more like, okay, what is the product need to look like? Well, is it red or blue? Is it going to have this feature or not that feature? What kind of business model it needs to have for me to achieve the best result, etc. Am I going to charge a fixed fee? Is it the license fee? Whatever it is. Is the add-on services going to be? You begin to build these ones because then you know the segment and what they begin to need. And that's like the problem solution fit. And really it's modeling the business, modeling the product. That's why it's a product market fit. Yeah. And understand the market is the segmentations there. There's a big on that sense. It is that on the problem solution fit, it's really meeting customers, building understanding. And then it's in the product market, okay, what is the business model? What size is the market? Too often we define the market in early stage and we don't have a clue what is the segmentation of that market. Because small company always, you can't reach all the segments. Big companies can reach multiple segments. Small companies have to choose which segment am I going to go after. And you might have 1 or 2 segments. And the industry or that business might have 50 segments. You just can't go after all of them.
So would it be right to say, based on your description, that when you're in the problem solution phase, it's really you're looking at the world customer by customer, and you try to understand what are the problems of this customer, how much value to this customer is from the solution. And once you have enough of those, you can start kind of grouping them together, and that's when you start looking at the product market fit, because in the long run, you won't be able to change your solution. You won't be able to adjust everything that you do customer by customer. You need to find a group of customers who have similar enough need so that by building this one product, one solution, you will be able to, similar enough need so that you will be able to address all of their issues.
And also similar enough value. Because you don't want to have a really spread out business models. You want to have really quite, and it needs to create that sense similar value also to the customer.
All right. Makes sense. So the last time in the studio I was with Sampo Parkkinen, and Sampo had a question for you. Now we're going back towards the investor side of things. So during your investor career, what has been the biggest mistake that you've made as an investor?
Biggest mistake of thinking that you can grow big companies really fast. It is that it's my background as an entrepreneur. Actually, one of the companies I founded just announced that they are making 200 million turnover, but that building a big company takes loads of many years, and maybe there was this dream that someone can figure out how to grow fast, really, really fast grow, and that might have been the biggest mistake. It takes time. You can't. You need years for this.
I think that's really good view to pass on to the listeners. As we all know, we want things to happen now, but good things take time, and you can't. You always want to look for ways to speed things up, but there comes a limit that you just can't do it any faster.
Yeah, it is. I would say that it's because I've been angel investing now for 16 years. That is the most common mistake investors do. They think that, we go to exit in a few years. It's when I say, 7 to 10 years is typical time. And if you make it 7, I'm really happy. If you do 10, it's still a good thing. We think that miracles happen overnight.
All right. Now getting to the closing of today's episode, we have these certain questions that we go over every time. And the first question to you is, what do you know today that you wish you had known years ago?
Miracles don't happen. It's back. I'm about being successful is about learning and not repeating the mistakes. The fastest way to grow is that I learned a mistake someone else paid for, and I steal with pride. And I would say that is still, it takes time. It takes time. It takes patience. You can't be impatient of, I go from I want to solve the problem solution fit overnight. It takes time. You have to build the understanding. You have to spend focus on that. And you can't outsource it. That was the one thing. Let's bring an experienced manager. But problem solution fit is about learning. You can't, and it's always has to be happening. You can't skip it. That's what we can skip it was my first. I have been successful entrepreneur. I know how this is being done. But no, you can't repeat it. You still need to learn it.
And in the spirit of miracles not happening overnight and you having to go through the learning process, what could have helped you to move faster on your learning curve?
Speaking with smarter people. Yeah, it is. Let's say that I did what I did on the entrepreneur time. I took those when we started Gorilla. I went around US speaking with other angel investors and angel groups and VCs, learning that I don't need to repeat the same mistakes. Still, we had to learn lots of things, but that helped speaking with smarter people, trying to understand, okay, is this problem worth to solve now or later? That, don't go on the wasting your time on things which you can do later. Do the things you need to do today.
So the final question for you today, Petri. In the next episode, we have one of our founders, Anna Kilponen from Foxy, visiting us. What would you like to ask Anna?
What you would say you have gained with working us at the Gorilla, and that has helped you taking your business further.
All right. Thanks very much, Petri, for joining us today, and I'll be sure to ask Anna that question.
Thank you.